Okay, a good Erev Shabbos, everybody. Today's installment of HaChaim Parshas is going to be short and sweet, with a very nice story and anecdote I heard from the Rav of Ramat Shlomo, Ramat Deitch Shlita, Chaber Sefer Sivas Adam. I'll add that at the end. So, as opposed to the last two installments, we dealt with some very heavy concepts that required added introductions and explanations. This one will be very short and sweet with a nice story, easy to say over. So everyone knows Eliezer comes and he gives his tefillah. Hashem, Elokei Adoni Avram, Hashem, the master of my master Avram. I'm Adoni Avram. Be kind. And that happened today that you do a chesed with Avram, that I'm going to find and he gives the condition that whoever says shtei v'gam galecha ashke, that's the one. He makes this deal with God, and we're going to comment on that in a minute in the story that we're going to add. But he davens this tefillah, and he makes this deal with God, which Chazal actually criticized. But here's the question the HaChaim raises. He doesn't have faith in the tefillah of Avram. What's his tefillah going to add on top of tefillah of Avram? Avram Avinu, when tasking Eliezer with this, davens and in effect promises. Gives a very certain tefillah. Hashem Elokei Shamayim Asher Lakani Beis Avi U'Meretz V'Ati V'Asher V'Asher Yisbalei V'Zachet Tenes Artz Hazos. Hashem, the Lord of heaven, that took me from the house of my father and from the house that I was born, the land I was born in, and that told me and swore to me, to your children, I will give this land. He's going to send his angel before you, and you're going to find a woman to take from there. So Avram Avinu already davened. Doesn't get better than the tefillah of Avram Avinu, who is invoking also the zchut that he has, that he followed Hashem, blindly, leaving Choron to come to Eretz Yisrael. What's lacking in Avram Avinu's tefillah? That Eliezer's adding his own tefillah. So the HaChaim says a very big principle that we have to, apply to ourselves. That Avram's tefillah is good, in principle, and you can be sure that the principle somehow will be fulfilled somehow, some way. Problem is the means, right? Eliezer is the middleman, to make this happen. And says the HaChaim, a very important principle that we have to keep in mind. Sometimes the tefillah is perfectly legitimate and perfectly good, and you could expect it to be mekuyam. But the means through which you want the kiyum to happen could be faulty, right? So without speaking in so many words, the HaChaim is in a backhanded way, just because it just wants to explain the psukim and explain why Eliezer felt he had to daven also. Because Avram Avinu is worthy. Problem is, Avram Avinu said he should be the intermediary. He might be an unworthy intermediary, and that could ruin everything. So his tefillah is mitzad himself, Eliezer knowing that he's not on the madreg of Avram, but the problem is that he is involved as the emtsa'i, as the one in the middle. This could ruin everything because the one in the middle is unworthy. So that's why he's davening for himself, that I should not ruin anything over here, right? Not my lack of merit and not the fact that I can be fooled. And the HaChaim adds how Eliezer was aware he could be fooled. Right? He could be fooled because he might successfully locate Avram Avinu's family, where Avram Avinu wants a bride to be taken for Yitzchak. But they could deceive him and say, here's one of our daughters. And it's really a maidservant. Right? Yeah. How would he know? Right? How would he know? So he goes to that household, and from that household, they give him a young lady. And how's he supposed to know whether she's not adopted or she's not a maidservant? And that's why he's also throwing down this code, right? That she's going to even offer me more than I ask for. That's a sign that she's really from the same family as Avraham Avinu with the Midas HaChesed. That's why he's stipulating this particular code with Hashem, right? So that's why he's davening. He's afraid he can mess up. And aside from his lack of merit, what was he afraid? I will be fooled. They'll pass off another woman living with them who's not really from that stock. And this would be a decent sign, right, that she's really from the same stock as Avraham. She has the midah of chesed. But from this HaChaim, you take out a very big principle that whenever we down for something, don't stipulate how it should come to you. And I saw this in many Sforim. Just daven for what you need. You need Parshas, just daven for Parshas. You need a shidduch, daven for a shidduch, right? Whatever you need. Don't daven to Hashem how he should do it for you. Because that's mitzamtzem. You put limitations on your tefillah, and maybe that means is not a worthy means. So it's a very good answer. Just daven to Hashem for what you need, period. And don't stipulate any intermediate steps that you feel need to come about. That's a very big yesod. And it's for that reason that Eliezer is set up as the intermediary, that he has to daven also to make sure he shouldn't ruin everything. Okay. So this is easy enough to say over, but I'll give you a story that ties into this, how Eliezer, how smart was he? How, he's setting up this code to make sure he's not fooled. But the Gemara is critical of him and says, he's one of the people that, asked incorrectly. This is incorrect to make this, deal with God. The one that will say to your, I'll give to you and to your cat, that's the one. Well, he's just even a Shal Shaloka Hogan. That's not a silly thing to ask. Because, it could be a chigeris, it could be a summa, right? It could be someone, totally inappropriate that just by chance will say those words. But Hashem, Hashem was kind to him anyway, and it worked out. Okay? That's a Gemara. Okay. So now, the story that I heard from, it was actually Parshas Chayei many years ago when I was living in Ramat Shlomo, and I was sitting at Kiddush, with which was also attended by Rav Matisyahu Deitch Shlita, who I have a relationship with. He is the official Rav of Ramat Shalom Mitzad the Badatz of the Eda Acharedis, his son-in-law of Rav Moshe Halberstam, and he wrote big two-volume Sefer Shas and Shuvas Nesivas Adam Chashviyad. So he tells of the following story from the Marsham of Brezhin, right, the Das Torah. That's the original Rav Shalom Shvadron, the grandfather of the famous Maggid. Rav of Brezhin, I think you pronounce it. He had the following din Torah, interesting din Torah that came to him, that there was a chassan and kala that came to him, and the chassan wants out. The chassan wants out, because he discovered his kala has a wooden leg, right? He wants out, has a wooden leg. And and the kala says, listen, we're engaged, to back out, either he follow, it's a commitment. Engagement is a commitment. Engagement is a commitment. He has to either follow through on his commitment or he's got to pay compensation to get a shtar mechila from me. We're engaged, We've been dating for months. We took walks together. He knew I had a wooden leg. He always knew that. Now he's just getting cold feet. Now he's using his excuse to back out, and in which case he has to either keep the commitment or pay serious compensation. But the chassan is tiny mekach tos. No, I did not know. I just found out recently she has a wooden leg. Okay, so that's the din Torah that they had, that came to Marjan Brezhin. He wants out, with no penalties because mekach tos, and she says, no, he's breaking a commitment. Okay, so the Marsham says, give me a little bit of time. I don't know how much time he took. Could be just asked him to step out and come right back in. And Marsham, thought about it for a certain amount of time and says, that's it. The chassan walks. He could leave the engagement, break off the engagement with no penalties. Doesn't need a shtar mechila. Right? He's within his rights. It's a mekach tos. So the kala said, like I said, we were courting for a while. How do you know this? So the Marsham says it's a taisvus. It's a taisvus, right? So on that Gemara that we just quoted, that Eliezer, was Shal Shaloka Hogan. Right? He asked for, this was a silly way, silly stein to set up with HaKadosh, but HaKadosh will let it work out anyway. And the Gemara gives a reason why it was a silly thing, right? And what the Gemara says is just seemingly incomprehensible. The Gemara says that maybe it's Damno Chigeris, maybe a crippled lady. Of course, you want Rivka to be perfect, right? Not a cripple. So maybe a cripple will come up and, and say, I'll give you and I'll give your camels. So Tosfos asks the obvious question. Eliezer, even if he's not that smart, let's say, he's certainly not blind. He just won't throw the challenge to a crippled woman. He'll see that the woman is crippled. He won't throw her the challenge. He'll wait for a full-bodied woman, able-bodied woman, and to her he'll throw the challenge. Says Tosfos, maybe she has a wooden leg. Right? So I learned from this Tosfos, you could get away with a wooden leg. You get away just fine. It's not obvious, right? So this Tosfos shows that a wooden leg is easily concealable, right? So the chassan is right, and he could break off the shidduch, right? Okay, a cute story to say over, which relates to the parasha, and all the divrei Torah are lezchut rafua shlema for Ariela, Rína, Bat Aster, Betosach, Chayei. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.